Okay, right off the bat, the title is clickbait. I actually really love Fable 3, and I've played the hell out of it. My issues with it don't stem from anything the game does by itself, and to prove that, I want to spend a little time going over what makes Fable 3 great.
Alright, let's fucking do this!
First and foremost, the voice cast is nothing short of genius. Bernard Hill, John Cleese, Stephen Fry, Naomi Harris, Ben Kingsley, Nicholas Hoult, Michael Fassbender, Sean Pertwee, Simon Pegg, Jonathan Ross, Jason Manford, Mark Heap, Zoe Wanamaker, Martha's mum from Doctor Who, the PE teacher from Teachers starring a pre-Walking Dead Andrew Lincoln. The first series is actually pretty good, you should check it out. A guy who voiced this character in The Phantom Menace, video game all-star Troy Baker, and of course, this guy, whose IMDb picture is all squished for some reason, or maybe he's just got a thin head, I don't know. So yeah, it's a pretty fucking fantastic cast. John Cleese specifically stands out as the dry-witted butler that inhabits the cozy, interactive area that serves as the player's typical RPG menu. Not a single one of them doesn't do an amazing job with their characters, be them big or small. The world those characters inhabit is also brilliantly crafted. It may not be fully open world in the same way as The Witcher 3 or Skyrim, but every area is unique and dripping with charm. And that charm helps build the overall wholesome atmosphere the game consistently works towards. Playing Fable 3 is like the gaming version of snuggling up in a blanket with a cup of hot chocolate. You can't help but feel safe and comfortable while playing it. Throw in some well-rounded combat that manages to balance melee, firearm and magic attacks in a way that most games just can't. Tons of memorable side quests, like putting on a play for a group of spirits, or rescuing a princess from an evil baron inside a wizard's game of D&D. Wonderful, whimsical music that ties everything together. Oh, and most importantly, fetch quests you can, for the most part, ignore. All of that sounds like I really like Fable 3, and therefore this video shouldn't exist. Well, you see, early on, when writing one of these scripts, I make a list of pros and cons on the game I'm discussing, and in Fable 3's case, there was only one minus. It's not Fable 2. And that's it. It just isn't Fable 2. Fable 2 is everything I've said about Fable 3 and more. The atmosphere, much more charming. The side quests, cuter, funnier, and more of them. They're also much more inspired. Take for example the evil demonic bed at the top of the wizard's tower that transports you into a different reality. Also, the beautifully realised world somehow manages to be smaller, yet so much more endearing. The majority of Fable 3's music is also repurposed from the early games in the series. Not all of the music in there is on original, but the good stuff is. The combat is pretty much exactly the same, and there's nowhere near as much focus on fetch quests in Fable 2. Which means the only thing Fable 3 has over Fable 2 is the packed voice cast. But it's still got Stephen Fry, Zoe Wanamaker, all-star video game voice actor Nolan North, Sean Pertwee, Martha's mum from Doctor Who, and this guy from The Phantom Menace. So it's not all bad, although it has got James Corden, so maybe it's not all that great.
I suppose that's the gist of it.
Now, yes, a lot of my preference for Fable 2 does come from nostalgia. I remember being a very young man and borrowing Fable 2 and Fallout 3 from my next door neighbour. Not long after we got into a fight. It was a whole thing. I don't want to get into it. Shortly after, we moved house, and I was now the proud owner of both games. And being an early teenager, looking at Albion through Fable 2's lens, gives me a pretty apparent bias towards it. But I'm going to try and put that aside whilst I say Fable 2 is almost objectively better than Fable 3. I think Fable 2 is better than Fable 1 as well, but I never really played much of the first, and going back to it feels like more of a chore than fun, which is my shame really. But I can say that 2 is way better than 3. And here is why I think that. Fable 3 streamlines a lot of what made 2 and the first Fable game interesting. The property ownership has become so simple, it's basically pointless.
If it's pointless, it wins you £3,250. How many people said it?
Fable 3 property ownership
Is right. Your first answer was In the Heights, which was an incorrect answer. Your second answer was Rent, which was incorrect.
Fable 3 property ownership.
Though is now taking us into single figures. Down it goes, still going down, still going down. You got it!
It becomes more like one of those mobile games that you make fake money on over time, so you don't even need to play it. Social interaction with the townsfolk has been dumbed down to holding the A button on each NPC individually to gain favour with them, only to then be told you need to do a copy and paste fetch quest to continue gaining favour. Fable 2, on the other hand, lets you do emotes that draw in a crowd, letting you wow or disgust them all at once. Not only is that way more immersive, it was much quicker and less mundane too. Even tiny things like being able to aim at specific body parts, or having multiple NPCs follow you instead of having to hold one hand at a time, are missing. On the topic of leading people, Fable 3's world might be beautiful, but none of the locations come close to matching the genius of Fable 2's. The Shadow Temple alone was a work of art. Luring in innocent villagers and turning them into chickens never gets old. Even the story in Fable 2 just feels that much more personal, unlike Fable 3's quite enjoyable but fairly forgettable fantasy tale. And that's really a shame, because despite being a great game in its own right, I'll always think of Fable 3 as a game that wasn't as good as Fable 2. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. As I'd expect people to know by now, this is all just my personal opinion. If you prefer Fable 3 or even Fable 1, that's fantastic. Neither of us are wrong in any way. As a matter of fact, I'd love to know why you prefer one of the others, and if you're looking forward to the potential Fable 4 that's been rumoured for ages now. Let us know, and if you do have the time to leave a like or even subscribe, that would really help us out. Cheers.